Hey, I'm Darryl Fussell, the engineer here at Mallett, and we're going to go through the topic of post-frame construction in a little bit different manner these next few weeks. And we're going to start out by talking about pre-planning, about things to think about before you put your building on your property and before you buy your building. But before we do that, I found some really corny engineering jokes, and these are so bad that I'm going to only share two at a time because I don't want to overwhelm you. So what did one wall say to the other wall? I will meet you at the corner. That's really bad. And then, what do you call a snake that builds houses? Any guesses? Any guesses? No. A boa constructor. Okay, that's all you get. I got more, but that's all you get. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the planning of your building. So one of the things to think about is the site conditions, where you're going to put the building. And I got these great pictures that show some drainage issues. This looks like, this could be Louisiana. Looks like that's some kind of maybe that's a railroad bed or a levee. And it rained and the water is standing there. And obviously standing water is a big concern. And this shows water standing, and then this is the problem, water standing in the yard. The solution is to put a catch basin. Here's another photo of water standing in the yard. And this is a guy that's trying to fix a mess. It looks like he was digging a ditch and it rained, and he's just got a muddy problem. And there's water standing. The water is standing in this yard to the point that this photo picked up the reflection of the clouds above, which is kind of neat, but not so neat if it's your yard. And, here we have a yard, and here's the house, here's another building, and, the thing about it is, this is a good thing to bring up, at one time this yard may have drained. It may have drained real good before they built that building, but after they put this, now they have a mess. And so a good thing that you can do to improve your drainage is by constructing a ditch. Now you might, depending on who you are, you may want to call it a swale. Okay, a swale is an architect's ditch, but it's just a ditch to convey water. And, this little photo that somebody illustrated, you got roof drains coming down and water standing here, and the water wants to go right here. Well, this is a perfect place to put a swale. And so, the point to all this is, you need to look at your lot and you need to see if you need to do some work on it before you put a building. A lot of times, our projects are delayed because it rains so much in Louisiana, and then we get a heavy rain at your site, and we can't get our building to your site. And so, and I'm not asking you to build an interstate to get to your new building. A lot of times you can just take a shovel and dig some ditches, and it just greatly improves the drainage of your lot. So that's just one thing that you need to think about. And a flat land, we have flat land around us, obviously. Here in Iowa, it's one of the flattest places around. And but flat is great for building, but it's also not so great for building because the water stands. So just keep that in mind. And then and maybe think about that when you get ready for the construction. How are the guys going to get to my new building location? So that's the things to think about in terms of the site and planning and improving the site. And then the next topic is to think about is building size and layout. Now, this is my famous giraffe picture that I found, and so a giraffe, the average giraffe is a little less than 16 foot tall. So the cab of an 18-wheeler is a little less than 16 feet tall. And so, and I spoke about this several weeks ago, and you know, the point of this, besides being a cool picture, is that you need to just think about the kind of building that you really need. You know, I know, you know, they say in Texas everything is bigger, and bigger is always better. You know, they joke about that. And but a lot of times people, they do have that attitude when they're going to build a building, and you know, bigger's better. You know, like, well, if 12 foot is good, then 14 is better, and 14 is good, then 16 would be just great. Well, do you really need 16 feet? You know, what are your plans for your building? And it may not require 16 feet, and it may save you some money. So just think about that in terms of what the use of your building is going to be. And then the other thing to think about is, you know, is the placement of the doors. And this is one of the 3D drawings of one of the buildings that we did last year. And so here you see, they've got, looks like an 18-foot roll-up door here, a 10-foot roll-up door there, so you could drive straight through the building, and they probably wanted that. And then they have these eave extensions, and they have a roll-up door there, it looks like. And so anyway, you know, you just have to put some thought into the functionality of your building. And then in terms of the size of your roll-up door, I always tell people, you have to remember and realize that a parking space, when you go to Walmart or Target or wherever, a parking space is 9 foot wide. And the interstate lane is about 11 feet wide. And so if you have a 12-foot door, that means it's wider than a parking spot and wider than the interstate lane that an 18-wheeler is driving down. So it's, I'm not saying that 18-foot wide doors are great, but I'm just saying you need to think about what you actually need. And then the other part of this is you have to think about what your ultimate goal for your building is. And we discuss this all the time, but we have people that come in and they buy an accessory building. And they say it's an accessory building, which means it's a storage building. But then when they go to turn in the documents for their building permit, and they fill out their application for building permit, instead of a storage building, they put that it's going to be their residence. Well, you have to take into consideration where the posts are and where the windows are going to be, and where the doors are going to be. And so it's just something you need to take into consideration. And you definitely, if you're gonna go that route with buying a building from us and then getting somebody else to draw your interior layout, you need to give them the post layout that we designed your building to, and tell them to design everything around that post layout. So that's just another part of the building size, and layout. The other part about the building size, you know, we basically have three different sizes primarily. We have 30-foot wide buildings, 40-foot wide buildings, 50-foot wide buildings. So just keep that in mind. And then I put this together a few weeks ago. I talked about this, owner design considerations for a barndominium. Doors or windows in the middle of the wall. The layout of the post at 9 or 10 foot spacing may put a post in the middle of a wall. The owner needs to be willing to compromise on minor changes to door and windows layouts, because sometimes that door, you want that door right in the center of that wall for symmetry. You might not be able to get that. You may have to offset it just a little bit. And so these are just some things. Windows within 24 inches of the door need to be tempered, and then just remember that. And then so now we have gone in these few minutes. We have developed our site. We've got the place to put the building. We've cut our ditches so that the site is draining well. We may have even purchased some fill dirt and had that placed and compacted. And then we bought a building from Mallett, and we're ready to go. Or we're getting there. And then the next issue is permits and codes. And so the permits and codes, there's two parts to that. You know, there's the application of the permit and receiving the permit, and there's also the codes that I use in developing the size of the plant of the building. So one of the things, you know, this is an auger that attaches to a skid steer, and that's how we drill our 3-foot deep holes. And this is showing the depth of that 3-foot hole. And so just to talk about that for a few minutes. So one of the things that happens in the permit, in the construction process, is this matter of this hole. Okay, this is a rather dull looking thing, a hole. But the permit department is very interested in that hole. In fact, the permit department wants to inspect those holes before you put the concrete slab in, okay? And so I don't know how many times a year I have to write a letter that says, you know, based on these photographs, based on our representatives that go out to the construction site, that I can verify that these holes were constructed properly. I really don't like to write those letters, and I really don't think the permit departments like to get those letters from me. They would much rather have you as the homeowner call for the inspection as you're supposed to. And so this is a big deal. In Lafayette Parish, they won't even accept my letter because I'm an employee of Mallett, and they say I can't inspect my own work. And so they require a third-party inspector to write a letter certifying these holes. And they charge between $1,000 and $1,500 for that. So, and that cost is borne by the homeowner. So you need to get those inspections, okay? So that's what those photos are about. And then this issue of the codes, I've showed you, this is my famous wind load picture, and you'll notice this gray area is where we live, and that's where the 170, 160, 50, 40, 30 mile per hour winds are that cause special concern to the code writers. And then the other part, another part of this process, if you're going to make that accessory building into a house, you're going to need this grade beam poured, you can't just have the slab there. No, you got to have that grade beam that goes below. That's going to be a necessity. So there again, it takes coordination on your part as the homeowner to make sure that this gets done. When you turn our plans in, let's say you bought that accessory building and you turn our plans in for your house, the plans for the accessory building are not going to have this detail. The permit department's going to say, we won't give you your permit until we put that on there. So that's coordination that happens over and over again. And so that's just some of the things, kind of in a nutshell, of considerations for the pre-build and planning. That is the site and the actual size of the building, and then the coordination of the team effort between Mallett and the purchaser of the building to get the project permitted and then to get your occupancy. And so that's that in a nutshell. And then we'll move on to another topic next week. I promise 2 more great civil engineering jokes as well. So y'all have a great week and enjoy the clear, cold weather.